Okay, and I'll let everybody know.
Okay.
Aileen, you ready to get started?
Eileen?
You ready to get started?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Hello, everybody, and I do mean everybody. Thank you so much for coming out on 2 seconds notice on a Saturday. This says everything about Greenbelt. The most important thing I need to tell you to start with is that we are recording. Thank you, John Cathanelli, for zooming this out. So we will have a link. Yes, he did this completely on the fly. So thank you so much to John and his able assistant, Lynn. We have someone else in the back who also wants to be recording. If anyone has any objections to being recorded, please let me know and we'll put you in a spot where your image won't show up. So if anybody is uncomfortable, let me know or let Josue know who's in the back. Okay, so we're going to assume that everyone is A-okay with that. So thank you very, very much. My name is Eileen Kroll, and like you, I am here in the official role of concerned citizen. And I want to acknowledge that I am being the voice here, but all of this is happening because of a concerted effort, which was started by Owen Kelly. Where is Owen? Ah, there he is. Kelly started the thread online letting us know about the Secretary of Agriculture who let us know Thursday about the impending closing of BARC and other sites in the area. We would not be here today except for Susan Barnett, who is extraordinary on so many levels. It would take the whole meeting to talk about how extraordinary she is, but she is the one truly who is making all of this happen. I want to again thank John. I want to thank Robert Goldberg Strassler, who's not here, but who was working behind the scenes to be helpful too, and so many other people. Melissa Ehrenreich, who I don't see, has been extraordinarily helpful. So you know, this is a very much group effort, and like so many things in Greenbelt, it happens because one person gets going and then other people get going, and that's how Greenbelt works. So wanted to say thank you so much. In a second, I'm going to give the mic over to Councilwoman Jenny Pompey to introduce some of the officials and representatives who are here, but I want to be clear that this meeting is a grassroots meeting, and the purpose of this meeting is for us to talk about what it is that we want to see happen in very concrete ways. So what our ask is of the city and what we want them to do in coordination with the county and the state. So we're going to have a specific way of addressing that. But I also want to say, before I hand the mic over, that I want to acknowledge our forebears, so to speak. We're here because of people like Paul Downs, who 30 plus years ago said, you know what, we need to save the Greenbelt Forest Preserve. And so he's an example of someone who said, we need to do something. And then, you know, before we had internet and before he had all the tools, made handwritten signs to get people together. And some people in the room may remember that effort. This was before I was here, but he, along with Susan Barnett, are two of the many people who have been involved in keeping Greenbelt going as it is and the way we want it to keep going for the future. So on that note,
hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here. What an amazingly full room we have. It's great to see. I'm one of your council members, Jenny Pompey. And joining me here, I see the mayor has arrived over here. Mayor Jordan is here. Councilmember Roberts is here. Councilmember Danielle McKinney is here. We have Ethan Sweet from Congressman Ivy's office. And we have a representative from Councilmember DeNova's office who represents District 1, Councilmanic District 1, in which BARC resides. So I think, did I miss anyone? Who else is? Okay, I think that's everyone. And then also, of course, there's our city manager, Josue Selmron. And yes, big thanks to him, because when the group of citizens came to him and asked him for a larger space, he and staff really worked hard to make it happen, to get you guys this space so that you had a space that you could meet. So we really appreciate the efforts of him and staff in responding to the citizens. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I want to just reinforce that truly, I don't know how many other cities you could just on a Friday say, we need to pull this together instantaneously. How can you help us? And so thank you so much to you and your staff for making this happen. So here's my vision for today. My vision for today is I want us to be very action oriented, okay? Because we can certainly spend a lot of time talking about how we feel about what's happening, which would bleed into how we feel about a lot of other things that are happening. And so I want us to operate on a parallel track, if you would so indulge me. The paper that I handed to you, and people asked about the colors, completely arbitrary, based on the goodwill of Susan who provided them. The purpose of the paper and the purpose of these easels is for you to write down what your dreams and hopes and wants are for BARC land. What is it that you want to see have happen? And so we would love for you throughout the session to be either writing it down on the paper or coming on up and using the markers and putting it on the easel. And then we'll take pictures of it, and we're going to send all of this to council so that we're not going to lose the fact that we have a lot of thoughts, feelings, dreams, aspirations, concerns, sentiment. And at the same time, in terms of the discussion here, in the time that we have, I want to focus on who has information they can provide us to help us then help the city move forward with a plan. And one of the things is that we don't know a whole lot. And there's nobody in this room who knows a whole lot, because it is intentionally, in my humble opinion, not transparent. So all we know is that the Secretary of Agriculture announced the planned shuttering of BARC and other facilities and moving them elsewhere. And what does that mean for us in terms of what can happen to this land? And so I want to call on people in this audience, because I know there are very informed people in this audience who have data that will help us better understand what the options may be. And I say maybe because we know that this administration is not playing by the rules, is not following protocols, is not following precedent. So we cannot say, well, based on this, this is what's going to happen. But nevertheless, I think it's really useful for us to be informed about what has been true, what the zoning issues look like, what has been true in the past, and what it appears our options are, so that we can help the city work with county and state and maybe the feds to have as good an outcome as possible. And with that, I'm wondering if, Owen, if you would like to get us started?
Just a couple of things. So when the secretary made when the secretary made the announcement on Thursday, she made it sound like it was a done deal. BARC is closed, all the people are moving 2,000 people out of DC, and case closed. But it turns out the Trump administration didn't really consult with Congress. And so they're both Republicans and Democrats in Congress. We're not happy about that. In fact, the head of the Senate Committee on Agriculture is a Republican from Arkansas, and he's very unhappy, and he's having a hearing on Wednesday. And he says he's been quoted in the news saying this could hurt American farmers. A reorganization of this scale could be bad for America. We need to get to the bottom of whatever's going on in the executive branch. So it's not a done deal that we have to try to save BARC from development. It's possible it can continue to be a research center. So I don't know how what we do here and the letters we write can affect this, but don't give up on the idea of BARC being BARC.
Yes.
Boozman, a senator from Arkansas, chair of the Senate Agriculture Committee.
Can you repeat his name, please?
Boozman. If you do a search on Senate Agriculture Committee, his name will come up. Question? Yeah.
Just curious, our own local congressman, Mr. Ivy, has done, if
Oh,
anything.
he's also come on record in the press. This is happening fast. I mean, people reacted. He's signed on to a statement saying this is a horrible idea to reorganize in this way. In particular, BARC is a national resource. It helps our farmers. So no, our representatives are stepping up.
Other questions?
Yeah.
Can you just talk about the area covered? Does it include the library? Does it include all of our,
The thing that was announced by the Secretary of the USDA was all of BARC ceases to be a research facility, and the office buildings that you can see from the Beltway, they would cease to be government-owned office buildings. And in a 5-page memo that she released at the same moment that she released her video, she said the agricultural library would be saved, but not much else.
Repurposed.
Yeah, it would be repurposed. It'd be mostly office space because they'd be selling off all this other government-owned office space. Yeah.
Thank you, Owen. Exclamation point to what Owen said, I would also say, let's have a healthy dose of skepticism about that, because Congress has not been very helpful on a lot of different areas. So I want us to continue to work on plans predicated on the assumption that this shuttering is going to happen while working on the plan to hopefully not have it happen, because I think it would be a fool's errand to assume that things are going to go the way that we think they ought to, because recent history has not shown that to be the case. Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you, Ivy Kroll and Owen.
Hold on.
Not audible, I would like. Can you just briefly, before we go on, tell us, Ivy Kroll, why you so informatively started this meeting as opposed to someone else starting it? What I'm seeking is organizations that are trying to reach these goals that are represented here besides the council. I hear some names of people who've been very helpful. I have no idea if you're organized into any group that can be searched and that we can seek out assistance from and give input to after the meeting. Thank you.
I'm not clear there's a group specifically for this task. This is an ad hoc group of citizens trying to figure out what to do. But there are groups here.
Well, my question is not about a group, it's about an organization, and that is my understanding of the present law is that the property is actually controlled by the General Services Administration, not the Department of Agriculture, as all federal property is. And under the law, as I understand it, the first option for any disposal of federal property is a public entity. That means the most likely public entity would be the state of Maryland, which I'm very pleased to have read a statement on behalf of our congressional delegation. I'm wondering if anyone has seen or had any contact with anyone at the state level, and whether or not the Department of Natural Resources or the governor's office itself has taken a position on this or made a statement on it. And if not, I tend to think that's one of the first places we have to reach out to seek confirmation of their point of view about the prospects for the property.
Thank you. So this is certainly the kind of action item that we're looking for, and so we are having that preserved through this recording. So thank you very much for that input. I also want to respond to what the gentleman was saying, that my role here as Owen said, is truly as a member, as a concerned citizen. So yes, I'm involved with a lot of different organizations, but my role here is simply as somebody who heard the video, read the memo and said, oh my goodness, let's step up and do something because we in Greenbelt care about green spaces and we care about the loss of all these jobs and we care about the environment and we care about BARC as a place to watch birds and go running and go biking and the research. And so it is a place that has been in existence since 1910 with thousands of acres. And so there's so many things that are happening right now that feel overwhelming and out of our control. And this is local and feels like something that we can truly get engaged with and have some impact on. And so my involvement and the involvement of anyone here is on that level. Thank you.
I'm Mary Ann Cancer. I live in Greenbelt and I worked at BARC for about 10 years. I think it's important not to normalize the horrible things that the Trump administration does. And that although we may ultimately lose, resistance has value.
I'm Darian Boggs. I just have a question, really. I'm curious about the zoning on that because it seems to me that I don't know how it would presumably go back to the authority of the county with the zoning of it, and that could impact what could be done with the land in terms of make it. I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons why that land would not be very good for private development, commercial and things like that. It might help the argument for why it should be.
I can answer that if you like. Matt Dirksen, I'm a local architect. I put on Facebook the other day my understanding of current zoning, which it's reserved open space, and it's one of the most stringent protected zone overlays that we have in the county. And so, and also I think there's something within the state of Maryland which requires that any portion of BARC that gets sold from the federal government has to basically be protected. On top of that, there's Superfund issues on the property itself, which would require a lot of scrutiny as well. So I think if this were to actually start happening, where BARC were to in fact start becoming something different, my general sense is that with the state laws in place, but also with the county and with the temperament of the city here, I think it would be okay. That's my general sense on it, because anything beyond that is it would be really hard to develop that land at this point in time. But obviously there's a lot of people out there that want to make a lot of money on stuff, so who knows? We got to start somewhere.
Eileen,
Mike's right here.
oh,
Somebody's
here.
calling my name. Okay, there you go.
Eileen, I want to hear from Tom DeNerga's office. I got an email from him this morning about the zoning. So if you would speak.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm Mary Cook. I'm from Councilmember Tom DeNerga's office, and give me just a second to pull this up here. And I have to confess that I don't know much more than you guys do, but we did receive an email this morning from Councilmember DeNerga, and this is what it says. Senator Dorman, many of you may recall him, and presumably the 21st delegation were way ahead of you, meaning way ahead of all of our concerns. So we are searching for the year, but they passed legislation probably in the 1980s to prevent this. And here's the current law. Section 25-211, zoning classification of Beltsville Agricultural Research Center on sale. And it reads, if the United States Department of Agriculture sells any portion of the property known as the Beltsville Agricultural Research Center, the district council, meaning the county district council, shall place and permanently maintain the land in a zoning classification of agricultural open space immediately after the transfer of the land to the buyer. And as this gentleman has already noted, the zoning of this space is ROS, which is reserved open space. Thank you.
want me on the back? Okay.
Yes, hello, thank you for your answer. You mentioned the buyer, and the buyer, I am gathering, would not be a private ownership, a private landlord. It would be a public domain entity, the county or the state. I just want to make sure I understand correctly, because that is what I was hoping would be the fate of the land if whatever, regardless what happens to BARC, the agency, that the land be protected. Can you elaborate more on that?
I cannot, it is what's stated here is the land to the buyer, so we have no indication as to who the buyer might be. But I can assure you, knowing Councilmember Dernoga, he will do everything in his power to, as well as our 21st delegation, Congressman Ivy, to keep this land safe for research and for everyone's, use of it, which in any aspect that might mean, because I've actually done food studies there. So, yeah, I don't know if I have a lot of extra information, but
Okay, Jenny wanted to.
Sorry, I just wanted to really quickly recognize one of our District 22 representatives, Delegate Ashanti Martinez. He's here in the back.
I think if you wanna think that the zoning on a property is gonna save it, you're ignoring what's happened in the past few years. Because where was the county when they wanted to put the printing facility up there? The county was in favor. Everybody had the same argument, oh no, you can't build there because the zoning and blah, blah, blah. They ignored it. They supported what was going on. So forget that. If you want to do something to help BARC, pass the hat, everybody reach deep into their pockets, put up some money, and go out and get the best damn attorneys you can find. Because the zoning is not gonna help us at all. That's all it is. The county wants development out there because they want money, and that's what it's all about. So if you wanna fight it, you gotta fight it with your money and your courts. That's the only way we're gonna get anywhere. So, you're dreaming if you think zoning is gonna help anything. I hate to say it, but that's the way it is.
I haven't verified this, but somebody this morning was saying, well, the government can't sell any land until there's a 2/3 majority vote on it. I don't know that that's true.
That's not true.
I think that's a very good point that you made, and then maybe one thing that we can all consider while we resist this administration's effort, and hopefully Congress has a very strong role in rejecting it, as Congress, and we've seen a lot of Trump pushback, is maybe we need a different county council. Maybe we need different members to other people to join the county council, so that should it ever come that way, other people will vote differently.
Over here, this better hand up.
Over here.
Oh, sorry. Have someone here. Okay.
Hi, Kiki Theodoropoulos, resident of Greenbelt. I want to echo something that Rodney said. He isn't wrong. What did we just go through with the currency production facility where the zoning was actually changed from agricultural to industrial? And how was that done? Because in the first Trump administration, they weaseled in the middle of the night and put a transfer in from one agency to the other. So technically it was not a sale. There are ways around it. This administration is not following the law in any other way. We cannot think this is going to be business as usual and the laws apply. So we have to be prepared. I think the best thing that could happen is at College Park, Beltsville, Greenbelt, if there was unity, all the areas around here, and the state. Everybody has to be unified. We can't have some people saying, I'd like development, because I'm telling you, they're going to be adding to this package, the NASA land, they're gonna add, Patuxent. So they're gonna have this great big juicy piece of land, folks. And if you think zoning is going to save it, think again. These people think they can sell America. And that's what's gonna happen. So people need to be prepared for a fight. This is not negotiable that we're gonna wait and see. We've got to have action plans. And I think the best thing that could happen is we say we want it for conservation and for recreation. And those are two legitimate purposes.
So
Thank you.
let me respond to that. And then we'll get to everybody too. So following up on that and staying with the focus being on action. When we leave here today, what is it that you want the city of Greenbelt to hear in terms of what you want the next steps to be? What is it that you want? So I hear that you want collaboration with the other affected cities, and I've been speaking to the mayor of College Park, and he's very much on board with this, and they are working on letters. But what do you have in mind, a specific action item that we want the city to take up in order to facilitate what you're suggesting?
We want to preserve this. We want to preserve the land in the name of the state of Maryland, because I don't think there's any other way to do it. Now, this means that we would become responsible for the roads, for any decaying buildings. It's a huge responsibility. It is what was eating away at BARC for so many years because they were not getting the funding that they needed to properly take care of BARC. And so when we say, what do we want? We have to think about it. We want to preserve it, but how is it going to be done? So I don't know if they're going to be buildings that are shorn up that can then be rented out for recreation activities. I don't know if they're, we have to think about how are you going to fund it, because the state is in trouble.
Yeah.
So what I want people to come together and preserve it, but the action steps that you need to actually achieve that goal, I don't know. Thank you.
I think we all need to go to the governor's office, and the governor wants maglev. So I'm sure that will be one, oh, I'm sorry. The governor wants the maglev. So as you all know, 200 acres of the maglev train yard was proposed to be located at BARC. So I think we really need to get to him. Thank you.
I'm sorry, it's very difficult to figure out who's next. So I'm going to ask around.
Have we thought about a conservation land trust? I don't know if that would have power over, appointing someone, but.
She's next, she's next.
Yeah, conservation land trust and, well, basically what it says here, the Conservation Land Trust is a nonprofit organization that works to protect land for its natural, recreational, scenic, historical, or agricultural value. They achieve this by partnering with landowners, offering through conservation easements, or by acquiring land outright. Land trusts also manage and restore conserved lands, ensuring their long-term protection and contributing to community well-being. And two examples I know of this are the one in Silver Spring, where a man had a community garden. He wanted to keep it a community garden. He had developers, come to him all the time to try to buy the land. And today it is still a community garden. The second example is sure. And Anacostia built a community land trust for their neighborhood to preserve that as historical value.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you.
I appreciate the comments I've heard thus far, even some of them I think are misplaced. The BARC space should not be preserved for hiking, biking, and bird watching, and just the retention of green space. BARC should be preserved for purposes of agricultural research. This is a 50-year, at least a 50-year effort on the part of the Republican Party to do away with BARC, to move it, agricultural research west and south. Personally, I think it's because the Republicans don't like its name, the Henry A. Wallace Beltsville Agricultural Research Center. But that aside, Ethan is here. While it's important to rally the state if we can win Governor Moore's desire to do so, despite his desire for the maglev yard, if Ethan is here, if he could amplify on the statement issued by Hoyer's office on behalf of the delegation accepting Andy Harris Thursday, that would be great, because the congressional delegation can rally even a reluctant governor, as well as all the adjoining municipalities and the county, to the first principle here is to preserve BARC for agricultural research purposes. So I would ask Ethan if he could amplify on that statement issued by Hoyer the other day.
Is anyone familiar with the Nature Conservancy, or is this beyond their power? The Nature Conservancy, this is what they do, but I don't know with federal land, but they bring people together and they stop any development. They put an easement on it basically, but I don't know if you can do that with federal.
So I have two action items for the city here. The first is, we want to know where all the locals stand, and we're getting mixed messaging. So right now, going on in parallel, the county is actually having these working groups and sessions on building data centers, AI data centers in the county. And I've attended, as others here, I recognize a few faces, some of these community interest sessions, but the messaging there is like pretty much saying they're coming, learn to deal with it. So, is the county for a lot of development of data centers? There's a working group, that they have, but mostly it's not been transparent. And so I'd like the city to be able to allow us to be able to have a say in that too. I mean, if you look at who's on there, there's people representing like utility industry, the Economic Development Corporation. Those are not people, I feel, that have the interest that many of us here do. So that's one thing, action item wise. The second is, as Bill rightly said, it's not just green space, it's agricultural research. So we need to improve our own messaging, especially at a national level, to say, look, agricultural research is not, it's not a partisan thing. It's, things like international food sovereignty. And, we've seen in the past that's like been a bipartisan issue. So, as Owen had said, already in Congress, there's, bipartisan pushback, and, we can actually capitalize on it by, our messaging in that way as well.
Right down front here.
Down in front, right here.
Hi, my name's Amy. I would agree that the push should really be on being agricultural research, and it being what some outside of the liberal demographic I think most of us represent would recognize as something that has value. Just saying we want to keep our land nice and green, we want to be around green spaces, to the large section of the population doesn't value that, and will just think, oh, the liberals just want their trees, and that's not going to go anywhere. Also, we need to remember, or we need to try to keep in mind the pushback by NIMBYs, not in my backyard folks, and how that's been really altering a lot of possible liberal aspirations over the past 50 or so years. And we want to try to stop that kind of knee-jerk reaction of, oh, I don't want this to happen. We need to think about what's best for the entire community. And so I would think about, one, definitely push the research angle. This is productive. This isn't just for, of course, the environment in general being saved is a very good thing. We need to push, how are we getting, money from this? How are we getting just economic activity and research, obviously, for national sovereignty interests? And then
we also need to think about, okay, what if they do end up, we can also think about, okay, what about private buyer? Well, private buyer for farmland, it makes sense if that's a farmer. I think we should be open to being able to agree with the idea of, okay, this can be used for farming purposes. There are tons of farmers in Maryland, although so conservatives don't think that's possibly what they're trying to get. They know it's just blue state, they just think we're a bunch of cities. You go on the Eastern Shore, I mean, oh, show me the big city on the Eastern Shore. No, we have tons of farmers. We have, I'm sure that's good farmland. And I think we should be open to saying, okay, you wanted to sell it and sell it to a private farmer. And I know that could come with, there's already a farm right next to it, it's private, so, thank you.
Okay, go.
Okay, we have an
Go ahead, go
online
ahead.
comment.
Go ahead first. Oh, okay.
I just wanted to add 2 points. Neighbor of mine made a great point in terms of the maglev train. She likened the current proposed route to, and I already called the governor's office about this. It essentially, if it goes with the proposed route, it will become the train version of the Concorde. It's not financially sustainable. And I think that's, we want to tell the governor, we want him to be successful. I said the same thing to Senator Alsabrook's staff when she co-sponsored the Genius Act and voted for it. So we've got a lot of work to do, but I'm serving on the advocacy team of the indivisible Prince George's County. And we're working also, the last point is, this is a historical community that we're in right now. This is the first suburb in the United States that was created by the New Deal. And this administration has clearly got us in their crosshairs because, they're dismantling the New Deal. So historic preservation, let's get those folks in there too, because they're pretty well resourced.
Comment online from CPAE. Preserve BARC as a green space in perpetuity. County Park. Conservation, land and trust through the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. And lastly, conserved green space could be still used for research.
And,
Could I just clarify something with the maglev thing? It's not just the governor. He's trying to deny that he is on board with it. He said that to the mayor of one of the municipalities, but I don't believe it. Also, our county executive is in there with Northeast Maglev, and the new chairman of the planning board, our dear Daryl Barnes, was employed by or had a contract with Northeast Maglev to be a mouthpiece. So now they are installed, so it's not just the governor if you have an action item for that. It's not just the governor, it's coming on down, and the council head at Burroughs is inclined to do whatever the county executive is going to do. So Maryland Coalition for Responsible Transit is trying to educate them if they want to listen. So I just want to clarify, it's not just the governor.
Listen.
Hi, so I have a couple of action items for the city. One, I was looking at their comments when the BEP proposal came up.
Can you tell us what that is?
The Bureau of Engraving and Printing proposal came up, yep. And they did suggest that there were some species that were potentially going to be ESA listed, a bat. So I think that it would be helpful for the city to clarify both like the legal and the conservation concerns. I also think that it's possible if we do find a group, like an actual nonprofit group who wants to take this on, to get pro bono representation from a group like Chesapeake Legal Alliance, given the environmental precedent that this could set. I'm mostly worried about about leasing and interagency transfer, and if that land remaining federal because of all of the ability for the federal agencies at this moment in time to just move ahead very quickly without any oversight. So one of my questions that I have legally, and I don't know that we have good questions for this, but it's a good question for the governor. And I personally think that everyone's gonna try and make a deal out of this. We've got the FBI, we have NASA, and we have BARC forget about the land, think about the jobs. So people are gonna be trying to make a deal, and the question is, honestly, what are they gonna save? So one of the, if push comes to shove, and the state has state code that says that this land should be, you know, agricultural use for forever, the question is which sovereign wins, right? So does federal law trump state law, even though it's federally held? Like, how does that even work? And then there's the county law. So I don't know what that looks like, but you can either set up a fight or you could set up a deal. Then the last thing I wanted to say was I'm very interested in something that was mentioned. I think Owen mentioned the Arkansas senator. I'm very interested about Eastern Shore farmers and Delmarva farmers, and what like that as a powerful constituency to push back on the quality and the importance of jobs and research to farming industries and feeding America, because we're gonna have a lot of problems feeding America for many reasons, but BARC does some really great work on food supply. And the last thing I was gonna say is that they tried to do this, they moved something, I forget what, I was researching this and somebody can do a better job of it, but they moved a research center away, and I don't know where it was, can't remember, but it actually, there was just a GAO report, I think in 2022 that came out and basically said, you know, they tried to do it, they did it, and then it ended up losing a ridiculous amount of money. So I would personally lean on the waste, fraud, and abuse angle that says, you know, this is a bad move, there's precedent for why this isn't in the best interest of farmers, its highest use is as a research institution, we have an active constituency, it's a job generator, it's deeply needed, and then lean on all of these other R's. I mean, that's what's gonna make the difference. Andy Harris will make a huge difference, right? Andy Harris will make a huge difference if his constituency is telling him that that's really important to him. And then the last thing I'm gonna say is, if you want, like, the data center thing is it's a real problem for us, and that land, because there's a new EO that just came out days ago that basically says that the White House is gonna short circuit and accelerate permitting processes for data centers with a preference on Superfund sites. So this notion that the land will be sold, I wish it were. Because if it were, then the state and the county could come into play, but I actually think there might, and I hope nobody prints that, please. I actually think that's the bigger challenge of how to push back at that point.
Thank you, Melissa. I want to acknowledge the presence of, but.
Can we ask people to give their name when they start talking?
Oh, good
That's a
idea,
good idea.
yes. I want to acknowledge Jake Davis being here and Mayor Emma Jordan being here. And I want to acknowledge that Mayor Jordan and Mayor Pro Tem Kristen Weaver, who's in Colorado, both were very instrumental in helping us get this meeting organized and together here today. And yeah, I think that's a great idea. If people feel comfortable giving their names, that would be wonderful.
Over here. Go ahead.
I will be brief. I'm Sheila Maffei Tuthill, and I just wanted to bring out a thought that I had for keeping research at that site, because I think that's very important. There's a lot of aspects to it, historical, natural, but research staying there, I think, is important. And I wondered whether we could pull in the University of Maryland. I know they're looking at building a veterinary medical school in the College Park campus area. So that's just one thing that quickly comes to mind, that they could utilize the space doing research. But even if not a vet school there, it would be if that could transfer, and if they could be involved in this fight or this argument or a transfer, I think that we could come out ahead in the situation. Obviously, it'd be best if this weren't happening at all and the research were to continue there, and that's what I'm hoping for. But if not that, at least get the University of Maryland into talks about perhaps doing research there and taking over the research at BARC. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jim Drake, long-term resident of Greenbelt. I want to support some of the earlier comments in the audience. I think our first and strongest priority should be trying to maintain BARC as a research center. And I'm saying that because I think that argument can broadly possibly gain support from not just people in our community, but people across the country. And as opposed to, and I understand the arguments for wanting to maintain the land here, but maintaining the land here is most important for us who live here, and it's probably less important for the people who are across the country. So the strongest argument, I think, is to try to maintain the importance of BARC as a research center. Beyond that, keep in mind that Goddard Space Flight Center is also on the block here. And making the strong scientific case for Goddard is equally important. So I think in our community, both in our state and our counties, the whole issue of broadly supporting scientific research that we've got going on here is an extremely strong argument, not just from the point of view of the country and maintaining our scientific expertise, but also maintaining jobs in this area. I mean, how can the county say, yeah, let's get rid of Goddard, let's get rid of BARC? They're going to lose an extraordinary number of jobs if that happens. So make the case for scientific research remaining at BARC, maintain the case for scientific research staying at the Goddard Space Flight Center.
And Sam Glover, this attack on BARC is what almost like this general attack on all sorts of their knowledge, right? So,
Hold the mic to you.
oh, I'm sorry. This attack on BARC is just one little aspect of this broader attack on every source of knowledge, right? Universities and research institutes. It's horrible. But you want specific things for this city council, right?
Yes.
So I don't see what in the short term, hedging bets and everything is better than this guy's suggestion that we lawyer up.
Yeah.
Right, and I guess what the city starts a legal fund or we get some competent legal help ready for what hopefully won't ever happen. But in the worst case, we're gonna need to tangle in the court, in terms of contracts and such, right? That's it.
Thank you.
So 2 votes for.
Hi, I'm Lynn Porter. So my only thing is I wrote up education there, and I just want to say I don't just mean research type high level education, but also K through 12, and also helping people from communities across the country who want to start planting a more native friendly, environmentally friendly garden and crops. And that's all. Short.
Hi, Joan Whalen, Greenbelt resident for a long time. And, further on this whole legal issue, I do think that something that our city council, our county council, our congressional representatives can do is to get some clarity on what exactly might happen. The law that you read aloud specifically said it when USDA sells it, but the government has already said it's going to return the property to GSA. And that's what happened with USAID's building. It got returned to GSA and then GSA did whatever they wanted with it. And that law does not say anything about GSA being the owner, but they will be immediately. So I think that we need clarity on issues like that. It shouldn't just be my reading of my interpretation of the law. We need to understand what we're dealing with because right now we don't even know who we need to pressure, right? And until we have that clarity, yeah, we can't strategize. There's a lot of good discussion about messaging, but in terms of what our strategy is going forward, we need more information still. And that's where elected representatives can help us get some clarity.
In the back.
Hi, everyone. I'm Allison Myers. I've been living in Greenbelt for pretty much all my life. And so as someone who's lived here since forever, well, I'm not a scientist, I'm just a smart ass who likes green things. But as someone who's lived here forever, I'd like to say that, first of all, I'd like to say that Maryland is an excellent area for agriculture and farming. It's an outstanding geographical area for food production. And so I want to support keeping BARC as a research facility for reasons having to do with geography, first of all. But as a community, we need the jobs. Yes, that's important. That's vital. As a community, we also like the green space. We like to have the hiking and biking just over there. That's important. And as a nation, we need the agricultural research. And I think if the federal government wants to expand agricultural research to other areas, that's great. But what they're doing in Beltsville cannot just be plugged and played into, you know, a similar amount of land in like Utah, for example. Because they can do comparable research on different topics in other areas, but they cannot replicate the research that's being done in Beltsville because they don't have the same ecosystem as we have here. And well, also for the sake of our ecosystem, really do not want a data center built anywhere near us because those things are just, they're just destroying the land, the livability of the air quality, the water quality where they are. We really don't want that. And this is when I'm going to go a little rogue here. I appreciate that I am not the first one to say that this regime is not playing by the rules. This regime does not care about the rule of law. As far as they're concerned, the law is whatever they can get away with at the current moment. And so, you know, by all means, let's go through the courts. Let's, you know, write to our representatives. Let's lean on all areas of government, you know, to fight for our research center. But after all that, I'm concerned that even going through the courts won't be sufficient. That, you know, we need to be fighting this on a lot of levels. And I'm just saying we need to keep in mind that like the law is the federal government currently, the Trump regime, they think the law is whatever they can do to us right now. And so like really in order to be effective, like we need to be prepared to send the message to the regime that we're going to make it impossible for them to do what they want to do.
Here, Kathy, and then Katie.
Kathy.
Kathy and Katie.
Bartolomeo. I'm with the Climate Justice Wing for the Maryland Coalition for Maryland Legislative Coalition. And is your mic on? Yes. Is it? Okay. Maryland Coalition, the Climate Justice Wing. I've been with a data center study group for over a year. And I've gone to 2 of the 3 community meetings for the data centers. And it's, I know we're being recorded, but oh well. It's like a dog and pony show. They don't tell you up front why we're having all this stuff about data centers. And here's the backstory. I was in a lawsuit with, and I pretty much won, right? What you say, but it's a lawsuit with a 15 people, the CB 52. And now the county has to go back and address this law, the law that they passed, and it has about to do with zoning all over our county. And a lot of it has to do with data centers. But the dog and pony show, you know, you go in, you don't know that behind the scene is the budget problems. We barely got the budget passed and it's supposed to be passed every time, just like the state. And what they did, they pulled out money from different areas and got rid of, like the rainwater rebate check, other programs they got rid of, so they could pass the budget. So they did extreme things that people won't know. A lot of people won't know because people don't go to hearings or testimony. But anyway, this data task force that CJ has talked about is heavily membered by people in construction, Petco, WSSC, which of course.
Kathy, can you focus on what you want?
Well, what I'm saying is that we have to be in danger, we're in threat of having data centers ready to go. And they're gonna come out with a September summary of the meetings that were held. And then in November, they're ready to start looking at a law that they can put in place about where to put these data centers. Landover Mall is about to go in. All they have to do, I think, is break ground. And then the data center starts going. We're going to be using so much energy. It will take, the hugeness of this energy will take so much more than what Maryland has. In Piedmont, we might hook up with Frederick County because they're agricultural area. And they're fighting data centers, the Piedmont line, transmission line, that we are all going to pay for with our ratepayers. So, yes.
Back here.
Hi, everyone. My name, for those who don't know me, my name is Ethan. I'm a community liaison with the Office of Congressman. Are we okay?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So first off, I want to thank everyone for being here today. It's wonderful to see the community kind of come together around BARC, especially given the circumstances. Our office's main goal right now is, and I've heard it said by several people here, is to preserve BARC as an agricultural research center, because BARC is one of the most premier world-class research institutions right in our backyard, and there are many reasons it needs to be saved. It is one of the 5 ARS facilities across the country that is currently doing bee research, and I know it is not in the headlines as much anymore, but it is one of 12 sites across the United States that is doing research into bird flu prevention. So it is doing research that is going to affect everybody across the country because everybody needs to eat. Our office has been working on this since basically day one, since the congressman has come into office. I think us, in conjunction with the senators, have gotten about $70 million in funding put into BARC for modernization and renovation. You may have seen the scaffolding as you drive by it, so we're very happy that that's going forward. And in this year's appropriations package, we are currently trying to get them about another $10 million to continue those renovation and modernization efforts. We are the only Democrat to get one of those earmarks in that account, so we feel very proud of that. And I think that shows that the rest of Congress is aware that that BARC is really essential to all the agricultural research that goes forward. The news that came out on Thursday was not surprising. They talked about this. Oh, Congressman, would you like to actually say something?
I'm sorry, I'm running from one thing to another, and as I get older, the stairs get a little steeper, but I'm not sure what you covered, but obviously this was a shock, certainly the timing of it. And what we're trying to do though is work with anybody and everybody we can to pull things together so we can fight back on this. So I don't know if you had a chance to talk about the delegation letter that we sent out. We reached out to Chris Van Hollen's office, and I think the 2 of us and Stenny actually too, got everybody on the delegation to do the letter. The follow-up on that, I think, is with the unions. Anybody from the union here? If I could read the letter, can you pull it up on the phone? Okay, and then with respect to the union, I called the union to see a couple of things. One is, okay, I can read the letter. Although I gotta take my glasses off. I'm a big print guy at this stage, so. The Beltsville Agricultural Research Center is the foundation of our country's excellence in agricultural research, with its scientists working for more than 100 years on the front lines of protecting public health and supporting farmers and farming across the country. Shuttering BARC and uprooting its workforce will undercut its critical mission, endanger public safety, and unnecessarily waste taxpayer dollars. Clearly, the Trump administration has not thought through the costs or consequences of this misguided decision. Congress and the courts must act swiftly to block this illegal and harmful reorganization and ensure BARC remains intact. The law demands it, and our farmers depend on it. We sent it to the Trump administration leadership and the Secretary of Agriculture. Well, she made the announcement, yes, but we have to go through that because that's the proper protocol to fight back on this. But as you know, the White House is driving all of this. So we reached out to the union for a couple of reasons. One is
Which union?
AFGE, and I think is there anyone to you? I think, okay. But we contacted them for two reasons. One was a lot of the lawsuits that are going on that have been winning injunctions have been through union lawsuits supporting a group called Democracy Forward, which is doing outstanding work. Can I see real quick? So I reached out to them, and I've been working with their lawyers on other cases too. There's about over 200 cases that have been filed against the Trump administration. They're on many of them, and have gotten injunctions on many of them as well. Whether that works here or not is unclear, because these aren't necessarily terminations, as more as relocations apparently get less protection than terminations do. But that's issue one. Issue two was I asked if there's a collective bargaining agreement, because some CBAs have additional protections in addition to the federal law. I think it's under Title V, if I recall correctly. So I asked about that. They're going to get back to me on that. They had a meeting coming up. I want to say it was like Friday at 4 or something like that. And I haven't heard back from them yet today, but the idea is to see if they can pull whatever that is together and have a legal strategy too, because the best fight back we've had against the Trump administration with respect to government employees has been through the courts. And I can't say I was expecting the Supreme Court to be an ally for us on this kind of stuff. And we've lost some of them, but man, there have been a lot more wins than losses, especially at the district court level. So hopefully we'll be able to file something there and move it forward to slow this down as well. The other thing I heard through, I believe it was one of the announcements, but they're talking about relocating people, but not everybody at the same rate.
Yeah.
So the laboratories and the research piece apparently are going to be on a slower track because they're harder to move. So people who are in office space, just like what they're talking about doing with FBI, it's easier to move somebody from a desk to a desk. Moving from somebody from a lab to they don't have anything there yet is another story. So that's one delay piece that we are looking to push for as well. But the other part seems to be, and this is the feedback I've gotten from indirectly from some of the leadership who's been in touch, and then with the unions, they seem to be kind of trying to make this up as they go along. So I don't know that they really have thought through what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. And so from a logistical standpoint, part of this strategy, I'm not saying this publicly, but he's only there another 3.5 years, right? If we, yes, he's only there another 3.5 years. He is not getting another term. That's fine. He is not getting another term. Yes, please applaud that. He ain't getting another term. I've had about 6 years too much of Donald Trump, but part of it is a delay strategy, frankly. So if we can slow this down, first step I think will be, in addition to the courts and trying to get some immediate relief there, winning in the primary, in the midterms is a big piece too, because right now there's some statutory language that Steny put in I think the late 80s or something, about can't sell the land and can't get rid of the property. So that's a help. But if the primary thing I'm worried about at the moment is the people, right? So they start trying, you got to move to Kansas City by, September. That's a problem. So we're trying to fight back on that very quickly. So that's where things stand for, as far as I know, since, okay. And I don't know, I started to interrupt the meeting. I don't know, you guys might have, if you got questions or something that I can answer, if there are other people that are talking, I haven't talked to the governor directly yet. We've got a meeting we're trying to set up. I believe it's on Monday with the county executive, the governor, his representatives anyway. But primarily, it looks like this piece is going to be federal from a standpoint of trying to block it. So the delegation, and we already had, just coincidentally, several of us are going to Baltimore on the ICE issue to try and go deal with that piece. That's incredible. They just grabbed the pastor in Easton on, I think it was Thursday. This guy's been preaching there for 25 years. Raised his kids. Somebody called me, a guy named Lynn Foxwell, whose son had been, shepherded by this man. And they grabbed him Thursday. I did a letter with Sarah Elfreth on Friday, and he's already in Louisiana. So I got a counterpart, Troy Carter, down there. I called him, so we're gonna try and work that, but it's a different meeting. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
What are we doing to protect daughters?
We should have a second night.
Okay.
Like someone mentioned earlier, what are we doing to protect daughters?
There's 10. Okay. I don't want to get over my skis on this, but there's an appropriations piece on this that seems to be working well. Now, the reason I'm hesitant to put too much out there is because during the appropriations markup process we've been going through, if the White House finds out there's something that the Democrats like that's in the bill, they strike it. So I'm not going to tell you what's in there, but it's a lot better than I was expecting. Okay, so what we can do on that is come back with you shortly on that and let you know.
Okay, yes.
I had something I was going to say before, and I can say I have the honor of being upstaged by a member of the House of Representatives now. And basically everything you were saying is along those lines. So I was actually just going to comment to our group in terms of what our council can do on this, since it's kind of our main focus, although I think there's a lot of good other stuff here, is how do we, as Greenbelt, make this into a national issue? Because we don't have a Supreme Court right now that we can rely on, so our legal options may not work. We have a Congress that has a lot of great people in it, but they can't do stuff that they would like to be able to do. So I think that I've gotten involved with groups trying to take this to the people. I'm in Indivisible. Also, I'm on the elections committee, and we are going over to the Eastern Shore because there's no one for us to, we're not trying to get rid of any of the other representatives in this state. We like Representative Ivy. We may give him a hard time sometimes, but we like him. So we're going over there to talk to those people and see if they like their representation and how we can help. So we're working through the chapters over there and saying, look, this is your district. We're not trying to impose ourselves, but anything we can do to help you to go to your people, because they want to go and talk to people, canvass the people and say what's important to you right now.
So could I piggyback on that point right there?
Yeah.
Just coincidentally, the member of Congress who represents the Eastern Shore is named Andy Harris. And he is the chair of the Agriculture Subcommittee on Appropriations. So one of the things along those lines, and I know Indivisible, you hosted something with Jamie Raskin, I believe, out there a little while ago. But the thought is that we can try and raise these kinds of issues out there as well. Here's the catch. It only works if it's something that has connection to his district, right? So closing BARC per se, or reducing the size of it, I don't know that gets his attention. But to the extent there are issues that affect agricultural interests on the Eastern Shore that are connected to this process, and there are some, they're not as affected as we are, but there's some. But that's another piece of it. There are other issues too, which are outside of the meeting. Medicaid, for example, we did a roundtable on Medicaid a month ago, something like that. And some of the people that came to our roundtable came from the Eastern Shore because he's not listening to them. So they came to talk to us to see what we could do. And some of them are entities that are connected. Like it might be a you know, an urgent care chain or something like that. So we have to try and find ways to do it, but that's exactly, I think, the right strategy.
Okay, and once again, that's what I was about to say, so I will give this up in a second, but yeah, I think nationalizing this, because the other thing that Trump has listened to is farmers. When he does something and it's gonna threaten the farmers, he at least backtracks on the with the farmers, and so if people in Idaho think that the research being done at BARC won't get done, or the people in Iowa, or I'm a terrible person about knowing where agriculture is in our country, but my dad is from Arkansas, I know Bozeman, those are good people over there. Those people don't want to hear that the research that's helping them is going to get eliminated, because I have no belief that BARC will be reconstituted somewhere else. It's completely unrealistic.
Yeah, and on that point too, some of what BARC is doing, I was calling it a research triangle concept, but you've got the University of Maryland, you've got BARC, you've got NASA and NOAA all close together. And some of the work that NASA, NOAA, and BARC are doing works together, especially the satellite piece, because now the agriculture is so sophisticated, they actually use satellites to determine, for example, when to water the field in Bozeman or wherever. And so one of the directions we're trying to move in is to expand that piece. And, you know, for that reason, BARC is uniquely situated to advance that sort of strategy. And as climate change comes, and, you know, it's harder to get access to water, not just here in the United States, but around the world, being able to really be very careful and specific in timing with respect to when the water is used is critical.
My name is Elizabeth Toby, and I live here in Greenbelt. I also work at the National Agricultural Library, but I want to make clear that I'm speaking as a private citizen. But I did want to point out that a lot of the research is being done at BARC on animal health, particularly the health of livestock. And I know that there is research being done on poultry health. And the Eastern Shore is a major producer of poultry, so that might be one thing that I think
Great point.
that stakeholders on the Eastern Shore would care about.
Yeah.
Sienna Akabasi, I live here in Greenbelt, and I support work at NOAA, but I sit at NASA, and I do satellite work.
Bingo.
Okay. Now, one thing I noticed is like the NASA administrator gets a hold of the president's budget, proposed budget, and goes, "We're going to enact this." Without Congress approval, they just say, "We're going to do this." And I don't understand how that happens if Congress passes a budget, but then the president says, "No, we don't want this," and it hasn't happened, but they start enacting a budget that doesn't even exist yet.
Okay, here's what's happening.
Please.
Because it's even beyond where it used to be. So in the CR era, they would do the appropriations process at the committee level of both committees. The way it used to work in the old days, like when I first went to work on the Hill in '87, the appropriations bills would then come to a conference between the House and the Senate. They'd work out the differences and move it forward. Obviously, there'd be negotiations with the White House, but there'd be some kind of accord, president would sign it, and that's what would actually be. Then we got into the CR era. And so what that meant was power shifted from the Appropriations Committee to the leadership. And that's true Democrats and Republicans both ways. The committee still had a role, and it was very significant, especially the chair and the ranking member of the committees, but it was lessened. Trump's trying to take that another step further. And what he's done is there's this talk about impoundment, which is, I don't care if you guys actually passed an appropriations bill that was signed by my predecessor. I'm going to take the money and I'm going to put it where I want to put it. And maybe it'll be where you wanted it to go, but maybe not. And I've got the right to do that. That's being litigated now. The other part of that too is, and this was part of the fight over the CR when I went after Schumer a little bit.
What's the CR?
Oh, I'm sorry. Continuing resolution. So it's like a kick the can down the road appropriation. So we had a chance to block that a few months ago because it required 60 votes in the Senate. And so when Schumer and some of the well, 9, I think it was, Senate Democrats voted to move it forward. What it did was it gave, in my view, additional discretion to Trump because CRs have less detail in them than appropriations bills. So an appropriations bill, for example, I might have, we're gonna give $1 million to Greenbelt for X. I saw the mayor perk up over there. I said that. You know, that kind of detail isn't necessarily in the CR, can be. And when we went through this a few months ago, it wiped out, I still call them earmarks, but they have some fancy word that's supposedly less offensive, but that's what they are, right? So that's the fight that's going on now. We want to try and make sure we do everything we can to have as much detail as possible in the bill that goes to, that comes out of the House and the Senate. The NASA piece of this, and again, I don't want to get into too much detail, but Chris Van Hollen's on the Senate Appropriations Committee too. And so he's doing some extraordinarily good work over there that might really help us out with respect to NASA. But I don't want to put a bullseye on this at all. So, you know, hopefully it'll keep moving forward, and Stenny and I are working on the House Appropriations side too.
Thank you. Who has the microphone?
I do. My name is Anne. I'm here.
Oh, okay,
Hello,
I'm sorry.
thank you. This is actually along the same lines of questioning. I was curious, bringing it back to BARC, what is the current status of the USDA FD26 or FY26 appropriations? Are they in markup, in committee? Is there any intervention or leverage point that we would have on the FY26 appropriations that could help, you know, sort of move the needle on keeping BARC or keeping Goddard or anything there?
We just, you know, passed the House appropriations version of this. And when I say we, I mean the House. I mean, it got 0 Democratic votes. We all voted against the subcommittee bill. But, you know, went to full committee and passed out of full committee, again on a party line vote. I don't know where it stands on the Senate side, but the bottom line is, Trump isn't trying to necessarily change the money. He's not trying to reduce the money per se. He's just trying to move the bodies, right? And there are cuts that came with the bill that's going to come out because they're cutting everything across the board pretty much. But really, our big challenge is not so much of people getting moved so quickly. That's the goal. So.
So, this is Susan Barnett, and I'm sort of trying really hard to think of those points that we would take to city council. And I get hung up in federal land, but these are my thoughts. One of the things is related to what you were talking about going over to the Eastern Shore's indivisible group. I know that BARC researchers, and maybe this is just common knowledge, do outreach to the Eastern Shore. So they go there and work with the farmers, and this will be a service that is completely lost if BARC leaves. The other concern I have is the industrial zoning that was put in place for the BEP is probably still in place. And it would be important that that get reversed back to agricultural zoning if we can keep BARC, because I do worry about it just sitting there waiting for a data center. And the industrial zoning would be needed if the maglev gets its maintenance facility. And we don't want that. So we really need to fight for that agricultural zoning to be in the agricultural area. Of course, I just related to what you were asking, I think it's really important that we actually fund BARC. If we're gonna fight for BARC, we need to fight for the funding to keep it a successful research center and keep the buildings in good repair and all of the equipment that they use in good repair. That's all.
Just real quick on those. At the end of the Biden administration, we got Vilsack. Was it 50 million or 75 million? 50 million? Okay. They had money left over, so to speak. And we reached out, and they knew that there was an issue with BARC with respect to the status of the buildings because the unions had raised concerns, to say the least, and brought video that showed, I mean, the building, some of these buildings are falling apart. And I don't mean the old ones that are kind of the standalone, I mean the office space where they're supposedly working. So Beltsville put in 50 million. After we lost the presidential race, we hustled them through to spend the money. So I think that has been not just obligated, but I think they're already spending it now. Hopefully they don't, again, hear about that and try and shut down whatever is left to spend.
In decline in funding for many years.
Yeah, they have. And I think that's part of the argument. That hurts us, frankly, as far as the relocation argument, just like with the FBI in a way. The buildings are in disrepair. We can move people out. We got to move them out anyway. Let's move them to a different place where it costs less to have them, or they're closer to the, the people, or what. All of that stuff is an issue for us. And so there's a big fight that needs to come with that. The other part to worry about, frankly, is the sell-off of the land and development to track housing or whatever it would be. So those are all things we got to fight. The zoning piece, I'm willing to, cross that bridge when we come to it. That's more Jolene's issue, I think, in the council than mine at the moment. But at the moment, it's like, we're just trying to hang on to what we've got there and make sure that the people who work there still have their jobs and the like, and that it's not viewed as something that's winding down. Because if that happens, it's a huge problem, because as you all understand. So.
I just wanted to clarify some of the alphabet soup. Because we should not assume that everybody knows all these alphabet soup letters. So when people are talking about, BEP or BEP, it's the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. And there had been considerable plannage in the federal government wanting to move their office, which was falling apart in DC, to BARC. And there had been lots of concerns on environmental levels, what it would mean to make money there and so forth. And at this moment in time, for various reasons, it looks like that is halted, but who knows? But then again, it has changed the nature of BARC, and over time, the nature of BARC keeps changing. And so this notion of moving federal government offices, especially ones that are making money, to this area is a concern. And to your point about, what does this mean over time? And maglev, the magnetic train that has been in the planning was also planned to be on that site. And there have been environmental concerns about that, among many other concerns. So all of these make the issue complicated, because it's not a simple zoning issue, in my opinion, because as many have pointed out, the zoning issue has been manipulated to serve the needs of those who want to make it change. So in the short amount of time that we have left, I want to make sure that anyone's voice who wants to be heard gets to be heard. So you have not been heard, right?
Okay.
I'll be really quick. So I'm Kendall Morris. I live here in Greenbelt, been here about 3 years, love it here. My dream for the BARC is that it's an agricultural research center, and that it's even bigger and better than it is right now, addressing these issues of decline that we've mentioned. I think it has so much to offer the nation and a lot to offer our local community, obviously. What I want city council to hear is I want to see a united voice amongst the local municipalities. If that means bringing a lawsuit that might help the cause of the BARC, I would love to see that united action taken. And going back to something that Rodney said earlier, I'm not a millionaire, but I have a very comfortable life, and I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is and support this cause. And if that means paying higher taxes, I personally would be willing to do that too. Yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Thank you.
This is Tom Taylor. I'm a longtime Greenbelt resident. I just want to appreciate all the comments. I'm just wondering if it's possible moving forward, if we could build some kind of coalition, maybe led by Nova's office or your office, Ivy, or Greenbelt, We can get the Four Cities Coalition involved, the faith community, unions, all the other surrounding jurisdictions, and really work on developing a coalition that lobbies for this and does letter writing and visits. And we need some leadership on that. It has to, I think it has to have, somebody has to take the leadership on it. So it's not, dispersed all over the place, but to build a really strong coalition to fight for this with some leadership from any of the entities that I just mentioned. Thank you very much.
Sure. Count me in.
My thoughts are similar the whole time, but it feels like to me there's at least two levels to work on. One is the federal, slow this down as much as we possibly can, so maybe it goes away, make it as hard as possible so they know, Greenbelt, PG County, Maryland, we're not gonna go away easily. So I love that your office is already on it and looking at a legal strategy. It doesn't mean that we don't do what this gentleman and what we've all talked about does, which is get the municipalities together, the city councils, the state council folks, the federal council folks and the Senate, and we can be ready to testify, give money, hire a lawyer, whatever it takes. And if there's perhaps the city council and other cities could get together and sort of lay out what that strategy might look like, because we do need to get some leadership on that. And the question I had for you, Representative, was really, what you spoke about here was primarily a legal strategy in a sense. We also heard earlier that the Senate head of the Appropriations Committee, the Agriculture Committee, is a Republican from, was it Arkansas? Who is also interested in this. And I'm wondering if you've thought a little bit more about what your political strategy might be at the federal level to slow this down, even more than just the legal aspect of it.
Well, Van Hollen has had great success on the Senate side, in part because, okay. Chris has had pretty good success on the Senate side, in part because the numbers are closer and also because the Senate is a more collegial body and there's more impact that a minority would have over there than we do in the House. But yeah, Chris is working with the chair of the subcommittee and the full committee to try and figure out what can happen there. Here's the challenge. There are other interests on the other side of this that want the jobs to move to, what is it, North Indiana, these, yeah. So that's a balancing act that has to be figured out too. We looked at our House equivalents in those districts too. North Carolina, we're in pretty good shape, but I mean, even North Carolina was, having them turn down jobs is trickier, right? You get what I'm saying? So I think you're right, trying to work together, figure out a win-win strategy is a better way to go than, just trying to do it on our own. But it's not like we just pick up a phone and ask for a favor, because there's something that they'd have to trade to.
Right, well, part of my question, which I should ask more directly, is, so you've talked about coalitions with like unions and that kind of thing, but are there other national organizations? I mean, environmental or rural or agricultural that perhaps would be good coalition partners? I don't know if you've thought of that at all.
Another mic around. We don't understand quite so much.
Oh,
There it is.
Jay's got it, okay. I don't mind playing Hannah, no, okay. The answer is yes. The question though is, which of them are influential with the Trump administration? Right, so that's the game. That's the game.
Right here.
Jay,
Yeah.
and then you.
We have a.
I haven't spoken yet because I wanted to listen, and I also wanted to hear from the political entities that were here, because basically this is a political issue. I mean, we're all idealists. We want a better environment. We want a better future for our children and all that. That doesn't equate to anything that is making decisions right now.
Right.
What is making decisions right now is, where's the power? Where can I get my money? So forth and so forth and so forth. So we need to work with our feds. We need to work with our state, and we need to find out exactly where the state is on this. The county right now, I hate to say it, is in a horrible situation. They are losing federal workers. They've lost the stadium. They lost the FBI building. They're losing BARC. They're losing maybe Goddard. I listened to Break Boy on the news, and it was like deer in headlights. She's new to this, even though she's been part of the government, but to deal with all of these economic issues when you have people that are being dragged off the street and ending up in deportation areas and businesses closing and everything else, they are in a quandary. So we need to work and kind of support them and hold their hand to make the right decisions. So it's all political. And I know that the city council will reach out to the other cities, but we need to start at the top. We need to work. Remember when we had that huge rally when we thought we had the FBI building, and the room was full of all these high-level political people. Those are the people that need to be in this room again, saying BARC is not going to close. And that's something that we have to work with, is a coalition. I'm sorry there was no union people here, but again, they're probably scared as hell. Every time you hear anything in the newspaper and someone makes a comment, it's a statement said because in secret because of fear of reprisal. And that's where those employees are right now, and their families. So we have to really work together. I am so thankful that people called this meeting, because this is a kind of community action that we need. And I'm glad, even though we've had some good protests with signs are not going to do it this time. We can go and protest with signs anywhere, but we're going to need to have the coalition, the political coalition. And getting a lawyer now is a little ahead of the game. We don't know what it is we need to fight, and whether it's in the courts or so on, but that's always an issue. We have a lawyer on contract for the maglev, so we can do this, no problem. So I'm glad you're here, and I hope that I hope we have a website and we have a line that people can keep feeding into. But keep in mind, one thing that we always want and we're concerned about is the environment and climate change. The Eastern Shore is experiencing right now climate change in their farming, because the rising seawater is seeping into their land and they have to deal with it. And the kind of research that they need for that is probably being done at BARC. And BARC has been here for years and decades and so on. They have research on their soil and on their land and on their processes and procedures. They've been going on for decades. So they have a first-hand look at what climate change is doing to our farming and to our land and to our weather. But climate change is a dirty word right now. You can't say climate change in any of your defense, because you're thrown out, you're being against the people, or whatever it is they say, you're being false news. So stick to the politics, stick to political action, and work with the people who will work with you. And when you talk about the Chesapeake Trust and things like that, they'll do the best they can, but they can't do anything unless there's millions of dollars. To get BARC is going to take millions of dollars to purchase. So we've got to keep BARC the way it is right now. Thank you.
Thanks,
Got a quick comment online. This is brief from Beth. The Maryland Coalition for Responsible Transit is also a good model for a coalition. And can we get the gentleman in the back?
Thank you, appreciate it. My name is Oscar Gregory and I am from Beltsville. So it has a direct impact on Beltsville residents.
We can't hear you, Lisa.
Come closer. I am from Beltsville. I wasn't born there, I was born in Baltimore, long story, but it has a direct impact on the Beltsville residents. So I'm taking notes as I'm trying to do this. One of the things that I was hoping to get is action plans, and what I hear is a lot of good ideas, whatnot, but we need to figure out, to piggyback on the young lady's comment over there, we need to figure out what's gonna happen with, how is the the executive going to deal with the BARC land? How's it gonna split up? Right now, it's GSA, or it's USDA land, how it's gonna be transferred, so the question I have is, since it's your district, do I send an email, which by the way, I already talked to Horry's office, I'm gonna be sending in an email with questions. Do I send an email to you to try to figure out how this is all gonna transpire? Can you tell us what the next steps are gonna be from the executive?
When you say you mean the president?
Yeah, the USDA said, how they're gonna do, what are they gonna do with the land? I absolutely agree. My dad was a scientist, career scientist with the USDA, worked at BARC, retired from BARC, he died BARC. He made tremendous amounts of progress and research there in one of those little garden offices over there that is now being either renovated or destroyed. I'm not quite sure what it is. I went to talk to the administration the other day, and apparently I have to go through a communications person who has a bum number. How do I get a hold of these folks to ask them some questions? But the question to you is, do I send you an email asking more specific questions of how this is exactly going to happen? And because that would be the plan of attack.
Yeah, sure. Feel free to send us emails, anybody. I'll give you my email in a second, but I do want to be clear on a couple of things though. I think, talking about the White House, selling the land and all, I think that's where I don't think we're there, frankly. I think we're quite a ways from there, in part because of the language that Steny got put into statute 40 years ago. But also, I think they're just still thinking it through. Like I said, when I came in, I think they're kind of making this up as they go along. But first step, in my view, and y'all have different views, I'm here to hear them, but it's trying to keep the people in place where they are. Because as we've seen, once people get pushed out, it's harder to get them back. And even when, they won some of the cases where they got reinstatement, but they dragged their feet on bringing them back and all that stuff. So slowing down the removal of people, whether it's by RIF, whether it's by transfer or whatever, I think that's a big focus. One thing to mention too, as we pass, is you guys are talking about hiring lawyers. I'm not opposed to that, but I did reach out to the Attorney General here in Maryland. He's doing cases already against the Trump administration as a coalition of Democratic AGs across the country. This may be one where they can step in, maybe not, because they've got standing issues and the like, but we certainly should tease that out, because if the municipalities have standing, there's a good chance that the state would too. The Attorney General. So I reached out to him today. What he does is he's got a team now that wasn't there, frankly, 6 months ago. They had to create a team for litigation against the Trump administration because there's just been so much coming. And normally, like during the first Trump administration, just every now and then they'd sue the presidency. But this is like constant, just on the government employee piece, if nothing else. So
Susan? I'm gonna jump back to coalition. So building a coalition requires contact information and somebody who's going to coordinate that information. A lot of you might be on email lists from me or email lists from somebody else, but it would be nice if we can know who would want to be in the loop, informed, in a link or something, to a building coalition. And what that is going to be, I don't know, but we do have somebody here who has a computer and will gladly add names in. If you don't know me, then I don't know you probably, and you're maybe not on a list that we can reach out to. Yes. Hi.
So I would suggest that to do that, like if you're on Susan's list for, say, the mag list, you use that list, and a lot of us are on that list. And if you're not on that list, or you're not, or say GCAN too, if you're on those two lists, or take the list if you're not on any of those lists, then add to it.
Because not everybody on my list.
Okay. Okay.
Hi, I'm simplifying this before we worry about who's on what list. I'm sending around a very OG style of a piece of paper and a pen. People are just writing down their names and emails, and this way we can sort out who's on what list. In order for us to keep this alive and vibrant, we need contact information. Of course, no one's under any obligation to provide it, but it's coming around. It's coming around the mountain. Because we are running short on time, but this has been a very, very meaningful, productive time of gathering, and lots of ideas came up. Anything that you've written down on pieces of paper that you want council to see, I will make sure if you hand them over to me or to Susan, we will make sure that they get to council, or we can take a picture of it and then you can keep it. If anybody wants to add anything to the easel, we will take snapshots of these and send it to council. Certainly the ideas that we're hearing are about working collaboratively. And so we certainly are going to send that message to council, but we're going to have to keep this alive. And so we're going to want to keep a core group of people who are going to keep asking the questions, making sure we're getting answers and moving this forward. Because if we adopt a wait and see attitude, we may be very disheartened by the outcome.
And write very clearly, very, very clearly.
Yes, if we can't read it, we can't read it.
And let me give you my contact information too. So my cell, and this is for text messages more so than calls, but if it's an emergency, call me, 301-537-1451. My email, which is the easy, 537-1451, 1451.
14145.
No.
I'm the wrong person to do this, obviously. This is wrong.
That's a 4.
That's a 4. Okay, and what is this? This is wrong.
That's kill that.
That's good too.
That goes to phone number heaven there. Yeah. And my email address,
Oh, God, maybe I can do that. Okay.
glennivey@comcast.net. So it's GLENNIVEY, all one word. She forfeits the pen, yeah.
Just forget it. I'm sitting down, just clearly.
Oh, fair enough. All right, I'm sorry. Who's next?
Over here, this gentleman.
I'm sorry.
You mentioned some law that Hoyer had written, 40 years ago, and I'm guessing this prohibits bark from being sold. I think it came up earlier.
Well, and instead of just going through the regular sale process that GSA has,
Okay, yeah.
it requires an act of Congress.
Yeah, well, what was mentioned before you came here was that, as my friend here said, AID's experience already short-circuited that. So is this the Democratic plan?
I'm not sure I'm following you. The AID is a building that is, are you talking about the sale of the building or? Yeah, USAID. I'm not sure about the analogy, but for sale of the land at BARC, Congress has to pass a law permitting it to happen. Now, the point I think you're getting at is, can you get all of the people out of there and empty it out?
No, that is not the point. The point is that you are probably already bureaucratically, legally, I don't know, outmaneuvered. And it's disappointing that you have not taken this recent experience into account.
Tell me how.
It's engraving and.
I'm talking about the USAIDs.
No.
They didn't sell the dissolving. About how USAID was dissolved.
Right. USAID was dissolved by taking all of the people out, but it's still a statutory entity, right? So what Trump did was he just moved all the people. He fired all of the people. So I'm not talking about preserving the USAID building. I am talking about preserving BARC, the physical facilities. And in order for them to do that, there's a law that says you can only sell it after Congress has passed a law saying you can sell it, right? So USAID has not been sold. hasn't been dissolved. They just took all the people out.
Who is you in that sentence? Would it be USDA? I mean, who that, well, I don't want to.
Well, let's
So-
stay focused on
Yeah,
the matter at hand.
I think-
Let's stay.
I just want to say something really quick. I've been in Greenbelt for 20, I guess since early 2000s, my wife and I moved here. And when we came here, we saw Keep It Wooded on t-shirts. I mean, it was amazing how mobilizing everybody was to preserving the belt. And as we all know, Greenbelt itself, the original belt was actually bark. All right, so to me, first and foremost, I came here because I want to preserve the bark. I want to preserve the belt of Greenbelt, and that's what the bark is. And to me, if there's anything that we can, come together on, what can we do to preserve bark? And then work from that mindset. But that, it was so wonderful when we got here with our kids, and here's everybody keeping it wooded. And so let's work to keep the bark. That's all I have to say.
With us running out of time, I'm gonna have you be the last speaker, Bill, and I'm going to ask, Lynn, if you could get another piece of paper going around so we can get people on this side of the room, that would be great. Let's get Bill and then let's get the mayor having one story.
Let me be quick so I can defer to the mayor.
Hold the mic.
Glenn, when you read the statement, it concluded with Congress and the courts should challenge this. With regard to the courts, before you got here and subsequent to your getting here, reference was made to the governor. And we've not yet heard, or at least I've not yet read or heard from the governor on this. Congress, the delegation has the juice to convene a meeting with the governor, as well as the county executive and all the adjoining municipalities to present, as Jay Davis suggested, a unified front. I would hope that you would do that and do it soon, as the statement suggests. With regard to Congress, in addition to standing statutory language from 20 years ago or more, it would seem to me that if Harris's name could be added to the statement, if he could be won over to the statement, it would have more effect on other folks in Congress. And reference has been made to the good work done on the shore, District 1, and maybe Cecil County or wherever that northern county is, that's in District 1, benefiting from the work of specifically the Beltsville Agricultural Research Center over the years. And if there were an attempt to win over those farmers in District 1, then maybe Harris could be induced to say, well, let me add my name to the statement and to the effort to preserve bark in Maryland. So I'm just curious if Indivisible, and I want to talk to you, is going to the shore to rally those farmers in District 1, if they can specifically address the issue of speaking to Harris and alerting Harris to the necessity of joining with the rest of the delegation in supporting the preservation of bark.
Thank you. Let's.
Yes, all of that, yes.
Hey, I just want to thank Eileen and John and Susan and everyone else who helped pull this meeting together so quickly. The announcement was on Thursday, and council has been following this and has had some discussions and is actively working on some items now. But since there's four of us in the room, we cannot really speak, so that's why we were not speaking during this meeting. We're here to listen. But I just want to remind everybody that the jurisdiction, Mark, it's in District 21. It's in Tom Granota's district. So he's got jurisdiction there. He's passionate about open space and the environment. So I know that he is working very, very closely with Senator Roosevelt and the District 21 delegation. Mr. Martinez, our delegate, is here, and he will be working with District 21 as well. So, on behalf of council, I just want to thank you all for coming out and mobilizing so quickly. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, this happened on Thursday. We had a 4 cities meeting with College Park, New Carrollton, and Berlin Heights. We talked about this on Thursday. I was at a retreat of the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments just about an hour and a half ago. So I was sitting there with Ingrid Watson and Mayor Bowser and the regional leaders, and we were all talking about this. So it happened. Wasn't a surprise So we're all aware, we're all kind of working together, so rest assured that we are working together.
Yes, so, again, on behalf of all of us, thank you so much for coming. We are so very grateful to the citizens, to the representatives, to the organizational representatives, to everyone who pulled together to make this happen. And please make sure we have your contact information, because as you know, none of these things are a one-off. So it's not going to be a matter of, wow, a lot of us showed up today and now big things happen. So please make sure that we have your contact information. That's one thing. The other is anything that you want to have go to council that you either wrote down on a piece of paper or on the easel, please get it to me or Susan and we'll make sure council gets it. Let's hear it from Councilmember Jenny Pompey.
Sorry, I just want to close out really quickly. Thank you so much, Eileen, with two things. One thing is that we're very lucky to have Congressman Ivy here, first of all, because there are many districts in this country where their Congress people will not show up for a town hall. And not only did he show up, but he stayed for well over an hour. So we're very fortunate to have that kind of. And he will actually be here again on Wednesday with Delegate Martinez, Senator Washington, and Delegate Williams to talk about healthcare access in the wake of federal cuts and the impact of the big beautiful bill in quotes on Prince George's County. So that's going to be Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. here in council chambers, and they are asking you to sign up. So just let us know if you need that link to come here on Wednesday. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Doesn't get their address or info written down, is there an email people can send it to? Because this is Trevor's, this is Logan.
You can send it to me. You know my email. I don't want to put my email, I don't want to be blown up with emails, so I'm not going to do that. We don't have it, or this isn't an organization. I don't want to be blown up. The council. Okay.
People could put their contact info on their slides, so they're questions. What time is it?
Yeah, I know.
Great job.
Can we get the microphones back? Here you go. Oh, there's one microphone.
Recreation and a program.
Let's see, Johnny. Oh, there's. Where's the other?
Russian, I can't think of what I'm
We have this problem whenever.
Where do I put the
Here,
Send me the Zoom link and then I'll send it out to everybody. Council, okay, let me go.
That's why the Medicaid.
We need to write something. Yeah.
So that's.